This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
OPEC Plus may discuss an increase in oil output for July at its meeting on Saturday larger than the 411,000 barrels per day. BPD increases it made for May and June. Sources familiar with OPEC Plus talks told Reuters. 8 OPEC Plus countries have been raising output more rapidly than earlier planned, even though the extra supply has weighed on prices. The strategy of group leaders Saudi Arabia and Russia is partly to punish overproducing allies and to win back market share, Reuters has reported. On Saturday, the 8 members may decide to increase output by 411,000 barrels of oil per day for July, OPEC Plus sources have told Reuters.
U.S. crude oil output rose to a monthly record high in March, while demand for oil products declined to the lowest in a year, the U.S. Energy Information Administration said in its petroleum supply monthly report on Friday. U.S. crude oil output rose to 13.49 million barrels per day in March, up from 13.16 million barrels of oil per day in February and the prior all-time high of 13.45 million barrels of oil per day in October 2024. Crude oil production in Texas, the nation's top oil-producing state, rose 50,000 barrels of oil per day from February to 5.71 million barrels of oil per day in March, the highest since November 2024, AIR data showed.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
U.S. exporters face potential disruption to their shipments of petrochemical feedstock ethane after the Commerce Department told them to seek licenses to export to top buyer China, according to trade sources and shipping data. Chinese petrochemical producers rely on the United States for almost all their ethane imports, buying about half of the total U.S. exports of the gas. Washington ordered a broad swath of companies to stop shipping goods to China without a license and revoked licenses already granted to some suppliers, Reuters reported on Wednesday. Those goods included ethane, as well as butane gas.
Russia has increased supplies of its oil from the Arctic to Syria, which needs the feedstock for its refineries, according to shipping data cited by an industry source and LSEG data. Russia has long considered Syria as a key gateway for its trade and military operations in the Middle East and Africa. Its positions in the country's west, where it has a naval base in Tartus and Hamameim Air Base near the port city of Latakia, have been dealt a blow following the toppling of Moscow-leaning President Bashar al-Assad in December. But Moscow is in talks with Syria's new Islamist-led administration to keep the bases, the Kremlin said in January. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Friday he planned to increase tariffs on imported steel and aluminum to 50% from 25%, ratcheting up pressure on global steel producers and deepening his trade war. "We are going to be imposing a 25% increase. We're going to bring it from 25% to 50% the tariffs on steel into the United States of America, which will even further secure the steel industry in the United States," he said at a rally in Pennsylvania. Trump announced the higher tariffs just outside Pittsburgh, where he was talking up an agreement between Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel. Trump said the $14.9 billion deal, like the tariff increase, will help keep jobs for steelworkers in the U.S.
Copper prices fell on Friday under pressure from a stronger dollar, but remained on course for their biggest monthly rise in 8 months due to tighter nearby supply, highlighted by the premium for nearby copper contracts against those further out. Benchmark 3-month copper on the London Metal Exchange, LME, lost 0.6% to $9,510 a metric ton by 16:02 GMT. The contract is up 4.2% so far in May, on track for its strongest month since September. The price advance is supported by declining stocks in LME-registered warehouses, down 45% since mid-February to 149,875 tons, the lowest in almost a year. Copper inventories in warehouses monitored by the Shanghai Futures Exchange rose 7.2% this week.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
India halved the basic import tax on crude edible oils to 10% on Friday, the government said, as the world's biggest vegetable oil importer tries to bring down food prices and help the local refining industry. The customs duty applies to crude palm oil, crude soy oil and crude sunflower oil. It will effectively bring down the total import duty on the three oils to 16.5% from earlier 27.5%, as they are also subject to India's Agriculture Infrastructure and Development cess and social welfare surcharge.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.